Reddit. What is the stupidest slash most ignorant slash fed up thing you've ever heard a teacher say? Teacher once asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said, an archaeologist. She replied, oh cute. No you don't. Archaeologists lead very lonely lives. Jokes on her. Though, I became an archaeologist. And I'm only moderately lonely. You are in 8th grade. And had just gotten a paper back from your English teacher. Your opening paragraph had been a comparison that discussed the literary distinctions between first and third person. However, you didn't say first person and third person. You said third person and first or second person. The teacher writes in the margin, there is no such thing as second person. We had a Sikh kid in our class named Baldeep and our teacher said, Baldeep, what are you as star? Your name is Ballsdeep. Needless to say the family got a big apology from the school and Mr. Stevens took a week-long vacation. I'm in this literature class and the assignment was to give a report on an article you read that pertains to you. This Chinese kid disses on how it is difficult for Asians to Americanize and be viewed as normal. Afterwards the teacher, a black woman, replied that his report was good, but he couldn't possibly understand segregation and not fitting in because he was not black. I had a teacher tell me to go jump off the 3rd floor balcony in high school. A chorus teacher in 5th grade told my class that we were gonna grow up to become school shooters because we talked in class. This was right after the Virginia Tech shooting, and it was so bizarre to say to a bunch of 10-year-olds. So we had a math teacher in high school who was from what we had gathered an extremely sheltered Catholic. Anyways, one day we were talking about our History Day project, and it was about the Holocaust. She heard us and told us Jews don't exist anymore because they were all killed in the Holocaust. We thought she was joking, but she was actually shocked to find this out when we literally had to show her proof on the internet and the Israel as a country. I was 17 and I could not wrap my head around how she did not know this. She's the smart one in a group of dumb ones. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. My 3rd grade teacher to my mom on why she singled me out and picked on me in class every day. I believe this was after we did a butterfly thing in class and I told the teacher that butterflies came out of chrysalides not cocoons. The teacher was apparently very adamant that I stood out in a bad way and needed to be dumbed down to fit in with society. I traded a 1991 Skybox Magic Johnson for a Charles Barkley, and then later that day Magic announced he had HIV. My friend demanded a trade back because he didn't want that faggoty ass Magic card no more and took his case to the teacher. When I refused to rescind it, the kid straight up told the teacher the trade was unfair because Magic was gay now. Instead of using this as a teachable moment to explain that HIV does not equal gay, or even if it did, there's nothing wrong with that, he instead took a different angle. The only thing worse than being gay is being an Indian giver. Once you agree to a trade, you can't undo it. Yelling at the entire class that they were stupid, and then singling out her non-favorites and calling them stupid again. Hello 4th grade teacher. Teacher, what are you taking in university? Me, anthropology. Teacher, in most condescending tone. And what exactly are you going to do with that? Me, do you know what anthropology is? Teacher, well, yeah, but you can't get a job in that. You'll never use your degree. Me, okay, thanks for the encouraging words at graduation. I think I'll probably use it because anthropology applies to a lot of things. Teacher, you can't dig up dinosaurs everywhere. Me, that's not anthropology but okay. This is the same teacher who admitted she only became a teacher because she couldn't get a job with her math degree anywhere else. I'm happy to report I'm now fully employed with a PhD in anthropology. Still not digging up dinosaurs though, so have I really used my degrees? I remember in elementary school, after I visited my godfather in the US, I'm from Germany, I told my peers during break about root drink and how much I liked it. My teacher, who was nearby, then proceeded to be highly judgmental and calling me a liar because my parents would never allow me to drink alcohol. I then tried explaining that root drink doesn't have alcohol, to which she said that it is called a drink, so it is alcoholic. 20 years later and it still infuriates me. An African American teacher in my high school Who's still there, by the way? Personally, I'm glad 9/11 happened. 9/11 was one of the best things to have happened. Because now police officers and everyone profiles against Middle Eastern people, and less towards blacks. I wish I was joking. Not a teacher, but the school psychologist. In 4th grade in our school system, every student has to do a 1/2-hour evaluation session with the district psychologist. This was the early 1970s. BTW. So, to break the ice, the psychologist asks me if I want to play checkers. I don't know how. I respond. He's incensed. He can't believe it. He asks me several times if I'm sure I don't know how to play checkers. He grills me about whether or not my parents or grandparents didn't have any. They were all long dead when I was born. Grandparents, I mean, ever played checkers in front of me. Just freaking obsessed with the fact that I don't know how to play. He tells me to wait there, and he leaves the little room we were using for the session. This next part one found out later. Apparently, he stormed down 3 flights to the office, demands my home telephone number, and calls my mother and just bishes her out about this lack of checkers thing. I mean, according to my mom, he went on for a good 5 minutes about how horrible my parents were for not teaching me how to play checkers. She lets him go on and on and on, and when he finally exhausts himself she asks, "Are you finished?" "Yes. What do you have to say for yourself?" He plays chess. Click. Now my experience on that day resumes. He returns to the small room with a sickly look on his face, and then confirms with me that yes, I do indeed play chess. "Why didn't you tell me? You didn't ask." People need to wear glasses because their skull is too small and it's squeezing their eyeballs. Bearing in mind that they started with your eyes never grow. That's why babies are so cute. This was a professor, by the way. I was confused. I had a lot of trouble with ADHD and social anxiety in high school, so asking for help was always a challenge. So when I finally worked up the courage to ask my science teacher for help understanding something about mitochondria after class, she looked me dead in the eye and told me it's not my job to teach you this stuff. Go look in one of the textbooks. I just walked right out of the classroom after that. They call it the Trojan War because the Trojans won the war. She was a history teacher. She didn't last long. My 4th grade teacher spent a solid 30 minutes explaining to the class that there was no way we actually landed on the moon. She argued that it is actually very obvious that it was a movie production in order to boost society's morale and economy. When I was a student teacher, I heard a social studies teacher tell his class at least 4 times that George Washington added "so help me God" to the end of the presidential oath of office and put it on the test for the unit. This is a known myth, and the first recorded president to add the phrase was Chester A. Arthur in 1881. A ref king history teacher should do their research. My fiance's high school math teacher taught the class that to multiply something by 4 is to 4 it. She cheered for a student who had just entered a classroom mock election on the platform consisting entirely of "get the FGS out of the military." Those exact words. He described his plan to send them all to an island to die. She freaking applauded and then tried to have students who stood up and walked out disciplined for insubordination. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As you can clearly see, 5 should be rounded downwards when rounding off numbers. I don't believe in ADHD or Asperger's. Well crap. Sorry Miss R. But I had 2 expert pediatricians and about 5 different child psychologists say otherwise. Intro to accounting teacher told me that if I didn't use a ruler on the exam when formatting financial statements, he would deduct a point for every single line that was not straight. Like brah, in the real world accountants use something called a printer. Comma is not a word. This was my 3rd grade English teacher. Not a teacher, but a lecturer while I was at university. Hope it counts. So, she was giving this lecture about how the housewife role has changed in the United Kingdom since the end of World War II. Honestly, a really interesting topic. But I'll admit I was only in the class to make up the credits I needed for that semester. Eventually she drops the bombshell that there is now 100% divorce rate in the UK. Again. Admittedly I hadn't really been paying attention, but this struck me as very wrong. It's higher than it used to be, sure, but 100%? Literally impossible, as at least half of my family are married. And happily so. One student picks her up on this absolute travesty of a fact, but the lecturer sticks to her guns. Things get more and more tense as the class breaks down into a massive argument until the girl sat next to me yells, "Look bish. Just because you can't hold down a man for long enough doesn't mean no one else can," and stormed out. Best part of my entire elective. Next week we had a sane lecturer and life went back to normal. I barely earned a pass and went back to my major, never looking back. I often chuckle at the memory of the lecturer's face though. When I was in 4th grade, we had a sub that wouldn't let us go to the bathroom because we can hold it no problem. Yay right. I had a teacher in secondary school who just didn't like me. Never did. Not from the first day I stepped into her classroom. Weird thing is I always got good grades in her class and never caused her any trouble. It's possible my older brother did something piss her off because he was a pretty well-known troublemaker, but he didn't remember anything specific. So, anyway, my final year all the teachers wrote on my report card about how much I'd matured and my work ethic was so much better. Even the headmaster, a famously strict person, but an awesome teacher, had nice things to say. It was all true. I grew up a lot in that last year. What did she write? Zerby would rather play with computers than concentrate on his work. Her class that year was about 90% computers. Since it was a vocational diploma class, it was a pass/fail class and I passed. Strange lady. I thought about sending her a copy of my first pay stub from my job and putting a note to the effect of "I guess playing with computers worked out," but decided it would be immature. Theology teacher on the first day, "You all are stupid. I bet no one has told you that. But you'll never be able to get an A in my class. Theology is the most complex subject. Passed class with an A+. There's no way someone like you wrote something like this." My high school English teacher accusing me of plagiarizing. Frick you, Ms. D, that's what I get for putting in some actual effort. A while back, when I was in junior high, some girls were crying because they got very low grades at a test and the teacher who graded them spent 1 hour explaining that the reason he grades so low and shouts at them when they do bad etc is because he thinks they are smarter than that and expects more from them, and he kept saying again and again, "If I though you were stupid I would not shout at you to do better and all I would tell you would be bravo and well done." That's exactly what he did with me. I asked him, "That's exactly what you do with me, so do you think I'm stupid then?" His face almost changed color and he didn't say anything. Name of the student: "I think I'm pregnant. And it's because of you." In 10th grade, my 60-ish-year-old white female geometry teacher said, in reference to something she was teaching us, "Y'all can't just NR'd this." The whole class was stunned, and you can tell that she said it on accident, but still, super awful. This was in Tennessee BTW. My Chinese teacher liked to describe gory details of ancient Chinese torture methods to her 3rd grade classes. Trust me, you idiots. Prepositional phrases will be the most important things you'll ever learn in English. What are you doing? I told you to sit quietly at your desk after you finish the test, not to read a damn book. I'm taking you to the office. Screw you, Mrs. Stuffy. You're the worst 4th grade teacher I've ever seen. A science teacher in middle school told us that satellites couldn't be more than maybe 5 miles up. Dude, I'm 11 and I know Everest is higher than that. Just say you'll have to look it up and get back to us. He also lost his eyebrows trying to light a Bunsen burner. So, there you have it. I was in a class once that was told, while evolution is a great theory, it is known that God created us and we started in the garden. I live in Kentucky. English teacher told the class junior year, "If you pepper spray your balls it gives your woman some extra spice when they suck you off." He was fired immediately. Had a classmate with thalassemia. He had to get transfusions etc. He is also adopted and didn't know until our jackass biology teacher told him in front of the whole class that he is not his parents' child because biology and genes, and then proceeded to tell him to pack up his bags for heaven because he is dying soon. We were 12. Frick him. My classmate is doing well. We're 32 now. The same teacher followed me around in school and wouldn't let me go until he cut a lock of my hair. He was fired a couple of years later. At the beginning of my junior year of college, I was pregnant. And visibly so, because my due date was in the middle of the semester. Most of my professors were supportive of my pregnancy, but one of them didn't approve of it because he was very old-fashioned and knew I wasn't married. Anyways, about a month into this particular professor's class, there was an assignment that I ended up turning in one day late because it was complicated and because I was really stressed with, pregnancy and whatnot. When I went to his office that day to turn in the assignment, he basically told me to my face that I was gonna be a crappy mom because I clearly wasn't a very responsible person. Even though he wasn't someone whose opinion really mattered to me, it hurt a lot to hear someone say that. My app United States history teacher said I don't like wars, so we aren't gonna learn about them. What a surprise, not a lot of the class passed the app exam at the end of the year. Wife's master degree graduation. Had a speaker who started out funny. She was like 9/10 white people can't tell the difference between different black women. I'm actually Michelle Obama. She then went on a rant about how everyone is racist and told us all to go frick ourselves. My guess is they only looked at her first 5 minutes of her speech, which was awesome. My freshman year in HS, my BO teacher told me I was not capable of taking an app chemistry class. This fricked me over because she had to sign my course registration. I passed the level chemistry class with 100% the entire year. Frick you, Mrs. Whiteside. Also, I'm a chemical major. College nutrition teacher tried to enlighten us with the apparent fact that cows produce milk regardless of whether or not they had a baby. They make it all the time. Like how chickens lay eggs. I don't usually contest or speak up in class, but I needed to set the record straight and shut that stupidity down. She said she'd look into it and get back to me, but by that point I dropped the class. Trying to complain about the teacher about a bully, only to get the meanest be quiet I've ever heard, only to then get in a fist fight outside class. Got my ass kicked. One teacher told my little sister that she was terrible at math and constantly picked on her. She got sent to the principal's office every day and would come home crying about not knowing what she did to get there. 3 years later, she won the math Super Bowl and received academic excellence at her 6th grade graduation. My science teacher in grade 5 or 6, evolution isn't real. If we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys around? Substitutes count, right? Talking about music, we were discussing influential bands / artists. He thought the Beatles ripped off the Rolling Stones because they were the first to wear suits and change their sound. I then dropped that Hendrix was hugely influential of a guitar player and had a rather distinctive style of playing. It was melodic but far from perfect. Immediately after I said that, he quipped, "Yeah, he was pretty good for being a black guy." I went to high school in the 90s in the rural south. One time, at halftime of a basketball game, our coach told us we were playing N-word ball. He said the word. Yes, we had black players on our team. No, he was not fired. We were studying a chapter which discussed the events of the Franco-Prussian War, or otherwise the Franco-German War. German-led Prussia captured France. And the story by Alphonse Daudet depicts the last lesson of his French teacher. After Alsace and Lorraine were captured by Prussia, my English teacher, Ms. M, talked about how inconsiderate the Prussian rulers were by banning French in those cities. And somehow the Germans came into the picture, and she started talking about Hitler and his actions. FFS. I told her Hitler wasn't even born in that period. I had to write the spellings of all these countries on board for stating facts. Turned out, she can't handle criticism. For elementary English, we had to read the story Cassie at the Bat, and the teacher honestly thought the story was about Cassie hitting a home run for a happy ending. There was a long moment of awkward silence before another student was brave enough to point out that she was wrong. I was in trouble and told my cohorts that I knew I was being obnoxious, but what did they do? When we got to the office, she asked the secretary how to spell obnoxious. So I said obnoxious, and you're trying to teach me? It didn't end well for me that day. I had a teacher tell me off for reading Lord of the Rings when I was 10. She told me the other boys and girls wouldn't like it if I read adult books and that they'd bully me. Not as severe, but I had a teacher tell me off for using the shift key to do capitals instead of caps lock on caps lock off. My mother used to get calls all the time. When I was in kindergarten BC, the teacher would start reading us a story and get sidetracked with another teacher coming in the room or another student, and instead of sitting back and waiting, I would get up and read to the class while the teacher was away. The teacher considered this a distraction and set up a meeting with the school counselor, the principal and my mother. The end result was being recommended to psychiatrist BC. They were concerned I had AD or ADHD. My high school BO teacher looked at all the girls in the class and said women are the inferior sex. My chemical 101 prof said in an end of the year rant, if you cannot physically walk up one flight of stairs to the review room, you don't deserve to be in this university. I have a physical disability, and there were 2 wheelchair users in that class. He got a scathing review and is not allowed to teach chemical 101 anymore. Told her, in confidence, that I self-harmed because my mother was emotionally abusive. Called my mother and told her I was attention seeking and needed dealing with. App economics. Senior year. An office aide, very pretty, tall, skinny blonde girl, walks in and hands the teacher a note from the front office. Teacher glances at it, goes, this student isn't in this class. Girl apologizes, said the front office told her to take it to this specific room number. Takes the note back and leaves. Teacher waits for the door to close. Goes, there's someone that's only good for being a trophy wife. I had a teacher who said a lot of ignorant, moronic, and just plain bigoted things. He admitted the government probably shouldn't say who we can and can't marry, but he still voted against gay marriage because he can't stand gays. We are not ready for a woman president. Because can you imagine the scandal if it came out that she declared war while on her period? Because declaring war is as simple as the president screaming war and pointing dramatically at a country on the map. John Kerry is not a true Christian because the church he was part of allowed gay marriage. The kicker? He was a government teacher. His job was to teach government, yet he admitted to putting his own preferences before what he thought was actually right. And apparently has no idea about the process for declaring war. Yet he really liked me because I wore Star Wars shirts a lot. I'll always regret not telling him that I'm actually B. Driver's edition. Teacher, where do you stop when backing out of the drive? Me, just before the curb. Teacher, no, the sidewalk. Me, we don't have sidewalks in my neighborhood. Teacher, all neighborhoods have sidewalks. Where do people walk in your neighborhood? Me, the street. Teacher, that's not safe. You are lying. Continued to argue with the whole class about the existence of sidewalks everywhere in our town. About a 1/4 of the students lived on rural farms. I sat back and watched the class devolve. We got a new teacher the next day. 5th grade teacher said it wouldn't be possible to slow down a rocket ship in outer space because there's no air or other external medium to use for slowing down. If there exists a way to propel forward, which there is, then there's damn well a way to slow down. In high school world history, we had a unit where we learned about the different genocides of the world. When introducing the Rwandan genocide, my teacher stopped and said offhand, that's my favorite genocide. After she realized what she said, she clarified that it's just because Hutu and Tutsi are such fun words to say, but that didn't really make it any better. My 6th grade teacher once told my Asian friend to open your eyes, the paper is right in front of you. At the time we laughed it off, but I now realize how bad it was. The other girls bully you because you're a really good victim. Have you tried not being a victim? Head of year. Also the biology teacher. I left in the end and went to a better school that wasn't full of girls whose only ambition was to marry someone rich. In grade 2 my teacher said, okay class, please be seated. I need to teach you a new word. We all assumed it was a word for our spelling tests or cursive books. She closes the door after herself. She being white, and all of us 7-8-year-olds. She announces to the class, no, we are all very confused. She says it's a mean word used against black people, but you can say it to them now. I think about this every now and then. In grade 2 we would call each other that word. She ended up getting fired and no longer can work in the school board. Peanuts grow on trees. She even called home about my insolence. Didn't know what that meant, but definitely knew peanuts grow underground. Not me but my wife. Religious studies. It was an elective that my wife took during her sophomore year in undergrad. Not that it matters, or maybe it does, I don't know. But the professor was a Chinese immigrant. Anyway, the professor tells the what's the difference between a pizza and you joke to the entire class. The class had 5 Jewish kids in it. This was the early zeros however, so nothing really came of it. My wife still shakes her head when she tells the story. It was so odd and out of place. The professor never apologized for the joke either. Vaccines cause autism. Cell phones cause cancer. Don't use soap because soap has chemicals. 7th grade health teacher. A teacher in 8th grade said the veterans, police officers, etc are not heroes or brave because they have received training. My app professor told my entire class on the daily how dumb we are to believe that we'll achieve our goal, become a nurse or medical profession. She didn't say it in a sarcastic way to encourage us by making us work harder. She would say that when someone would ask a question or ask her to slow down. Scoff, I can't believe you all think you're actually going to be this because you're stupid. It made me so upset. BC, she would say it practically every class out of the blue. Made me scared about other professors I might get. Luckily, my following professors weren't too bad. I lost my brother to cancer when I was 14, and writing really helped me cope with the loss. I had a teacher my junior year of high school say, "It's been 3 years. Shouldn't you be over it?" I was in utter disbelief those words left his mouth. We had to write an opinion piece in the 8th grade and my teacher told me to write my paper from a different perspective because my opinion was wrong. If a shooter comes in here, I'm putting those kids in front of me. She later got fired because parents got so many compliments from students. She was a raging idiot, and as a bonus the most ignorant teacher I've ever had got fired on her second day. She had brought a vape into the school and had been blasting music and passing the veil around to some of the kids. The teacher next door opened the door, saw what was happening, and walked out. Within like 15 minutes the vice principal comes in and told her to grab her personal stuff and come with him. She walked out crying. Funniest crap I've seen. Drama teacher told a 10-year-old, if you're going to be an actress you have to have a second job. But you don't want to be a waitress. Even phone sex is better than waitressing. In high school I had very bad anxiety. To the point where I would never look people in the eye. I'd always look at the ground when walking and try to be invisible. My self-esteem was non-existent. I had been called into a meeting at my principal's office as I skipped alert. They knew about my anxiety and low self-esteem. And my principal told me, this year you might not be the prettiest, but you're not that ugly. And then my teacher giggled a little. I felt so humiliated and degraded that I got up and just walked out. Edit, spelling. In high school government class, if we let a man marry a man, what's to stop a man from marrying a peacock? Thanks. Alabama public education. I was the top student in my high school, but didn't fit in with the other smart kids. One day my biology teacher interrupted the class and told me to move to another seat, away from the dumb weirdos. He was teaching osmosis in that class, and said I'd become more like them if I was sitting there, absorbing their crap. Even though they were not the best students, they were the only kids who accepted me for being gay in the whole school.